When the search team finally reached the campsite, something didn't make sense. There were no signs of a struggle, no scattered equipment, no indication that anything had gone wrong. And yet, the tent had been abandoned. When the search team found the tent, it was barely visible. The hikers' boots were inside, their coats were inside, their food, their equipment. Everything they needed to survive a Soviet mountain winter was inside that tent. The hikers were gone, and the footprints leading away from the tent were barefoot. There were 9 of them, all experienced hikers, trained and prepared. Nothing about that night suggested anything was wrong, but something happened that caused every single one of them to leave their shelter at the exact same time. January 1959. 9 hikers set out into the Ural Mountains of the Soviet Union, led by Igor Dyatlov. Their destination, Otorten Mountain, a difficult route, but well within their abilities. Nothing about this should have gone wrong. On the night of February 1st, they set up camp on the slope of Kholat Syakhl. The locals had a name for that mountain. It translates to Dead Mountain. They never came back down. To reach their destination, they had to cross the eastern slope of Kholat Syakhl. The name comes from the local Mansi language. There are local stories about that area. One of them tells of a group of Mansi hunters who died on that mountain long before 1959. According to the story, there were 9 of them. How much of that is true isn't clear. But Dyatlov's group was also 9 people. It's a detail that probably doesn't mean anything, but it's hard to ignore. They documented everything: photos, journals, small moments along the way, jokes, songs, complaints about the cold. In one entry, they wrote about how normal everything felt. Nothing unusual, nothing threatening. The last photo taken that day shows them setting up the tent. Calm, focused. It's the last moment where everything made sense. When the group failed to return, a search party was sent. Weeks later, they found the tent, still standing, partially buried in snow, but cut open from the inside, not unzipped, not damaged from the outside, cut open. Like getting out was more important than doing it properly. Inside, everything was still there. Boots, coats, supplies, everything they would need to survive, left behind. Leading away from the tent were footprints, 9 sets, orderly, calm, no signs of panic, just leaving. Some in socks, some barefoot, in temperatures near -30 degrees Celsius. They walked 1.5 kilometers downhill toward the forest. At the edge of the tree line, under a large cedar, searchers found the first 2 bodies. Barefoot, lightly dressed, their hands were torn, the branches above them, broken up to 5 meters high. They had been climbing, in the dark, in the cold, in their underwear, watching something. And up to this point, it could still be explained. Exposure, disorientation, bad decisions. Then they found the rest of the bodies. More bodies were discovered across the slope, 3 of them positioned between the tree and the tent, as if they had tried to go back. The final 4 were found in a ravine, months later, partially buried. And this is where everything stops making sense. 2 of them had severe chest injuries, crushed ribs, collapsed lungs. Another had a fractured skull. And yet, there were no external wounds to explain any of it. was as if the damage came from something powerful, but invisible. The force required to cause those injuries was comparable to a car crash. There was no car. One of the hikers was missing her tongue. Her eyes were gone. Her lips gone. Officially, it was explained as decomposition, but even the investigators didn't seem convinced. 9 experienced hikers left their shelter in freezing conditions, without proper clothing. Some never made it past the trees, others died trying to go back. So what could cause all of this at the same time? The most common explanation is an avalanche, but that's where things start to fall apart. No clear avalanche debris was found. The slope wasn't steep enough, and the tent was still standing. At one point, local Mansi hunters were suspected, but there were no signs of struggle, no foreign footprints, no evidence of conflict. They were cleared. Another theory points to infrasound. Wind moving through the mountain could have created low-frequency waves, causing panic. Possible. But it doesn't explain the injuries. Some believe it was a military test, an explosion, a pressure wave, something powerful enough to cause internal damage without visible wounds. It would explain some of it, not all of it. Because when the final bodies were found, their clothing showed traces of radiation, moderate levels, never fully explained. The Soviet investigation ended with a single conclusion: death by an unknown, compelling force. That was it. No clear cause, no resolution. In 2020, the case was officially reopened. The conclusion: avalanche. Most researchers rejected it immediately because it still doesn't explain everything. 9 people, experienced, prepared. A tent cut open from the inside, footprints leading barefoot into the dark, internal injuries with no visible cause, radiation. More than 60 years later, no one can fully explain what happened on that mountain. And whatever forced them out of that tent, they believed it was worse than staying inside. This was the Hollow Record. New cases every week. The next one is worse.